So Sean, a lot of people are wondering what it takes to get a house nowadays.
All right, so first thing you need to do is pay cash. Do nothing but pay all cash for the home. You got no contingencies,
Easy.
no nothing. You're all
Yeah.
done. You're good to go.
Because everybody can do that, right?
Everybody's got cash. Everybody's got a few $100,000 or $1 million lying around. All joking aside, there are things you can do. There's a lot of different things you can do to make sure you get that home.
And one of them is paying cash.
One definitely is paying cash, but there are other options.
Well, and also, again, not everybody can pay cash, but let's say you just sold your home and you do have some cash lying around. If you can't put all cash,
Get 50% down. If you can do mortgage 50% of the house or 40% of the house instead of 5 or 10 or 20%, you're going to be a lot more attractive to the seller because they know you're going to have no problem getting that mortgage, or it's going to be very easy for you to get the mortgage. And a lot of banks, if you're 50% down, they're not even going to do an appraisal, so it really lifts a lot of the stress off the seller.
there are other things that you can do, like decrease the number of contingencies that you have. So some people have been waiving home inspection. Do you think that's a good idea?
I don't like waiving home inspection, but it is something that a lot of people are more willing to do, or in a certain situation they can. Like if I've got a buyer who is a contractor and they know houses,
Or it's a new construction.
New construction, a lot of new construction, they're going to waive the home inspection because they figure the town has inspected everything the whole way through the process.
Yeah.
And if you can't waive the home inspection, schedule a longer showing. Don't do an open house, or if you do an open house and you like the house, then schedule a second showing and schedule an hour-long showing. And bring a contractor or even bring a home inspector with you and do a quick run through of the property before you...
Wait, can you do that if you're waiving home inspection?
Yeah, because you're not submitting an offer contingent on home inspection. You've had someone take a look at the house beforehand, so you don't necessarily have to do a home inspection.
How do agents react to that if you show up with a home inspector before you've even put in an offer?
You let them know you're doing a second showing and you're bringing somebody to take a closer look at the house before you submit the offer. That way they know when you submit the offer, it's a solid offer and you're not going to get cold feet and back out.
Yeah. Okay, that's an option. If that's not an option for you though, or you're not comfortable doing that, another thing you can do is waive appraisal or put an appraisal gap in the offer language. Now, I don't really recommend waiving appraisal either.
Especially if you're only putting 5% down or
Right.
FHA, the appraisal is really important. So you got to make sure you have that cash to back it up.
And also, when people say waiving appraisal, it doesn't mean that the appraisal is not going to happen. It just means that if the home doesn't appraise at or above the sales price, you basically, as the buyer, have to come up with the difference. So it just means that you won't be able to renegotiate the price with the seller. So another thing that you can do instead of doing that is adding some appraisal gap language into your offer.
So as a listing agent, I like to see appraisal gap more than waiving appraisal. Because they can say they're waiving appraisal and then the appraisal misses by $40,000. But if the language is in there already saying, we'll do an appraisal gap up to $20,000, $30,000, we're all running the comps. We all know what the house should appraise at. So then when we see that it's a reasonable appraisal gap, we know if it misses by a little bit, all right, we might have to do a small price adjustment, but we're not going to be losing 10 or 20 grand.
So let's quickly explain exactly what an appraisal gap is. So let's say you're buying the house for $500,000 and the appraisal comes in at $480,000. The difference is $20,000, and that's the appraisal gap. So you basically are covering that difference if the appraisal misses.
Yeah. And one of the things as a listing agent, if somebody has an appraisal gap and it's a big appraisal gap, I've got a pre-approval letter, but if they're doing an appraisal gap of $50,000 or $60,000, a lot of times I want to see proof of funds for that 50 or 60 grand.
Right.
So be prepared to show that to the listing agent.
Another thing that you can do is waive your mortgage contingency. I definitely don't recommend doing that. But are there any
there
situations where you could do that?
Yeah, so if you have the ability to pay cash, but you don't want to pay cash, you'd like to mortgage the house because you want it for tax reasons, or you need to keep that cash handy for something else, you're going to still get the mortgage. But if for some reason you can't get the mortgage and you can show to me that you have the cash on hand to purchase the house cash, and then I know afterwards you're going to refinance it or do whatever you want to do, that's not my concern. But at least I know even if you miss your appraisal or you lose your job, whatever it is, you're still going to close on that property. So I know the funds are there. What's another option you can do?
So instead of looking at move-in ready homes, which is where a lot of the competition is happening right now, consider looking at a fixer-upper, or if you're not comfortable with a fixer-upper, maybe something that's not exactly move-in ready, but it just requires repainting the walls or refinishing cabinets, replacing floors, something minor. Not well, replacing all floors is not minor, but you're not taking the home down to the studs. You're just fixing a few little things.
Yeah. Are you comfortable with cosmetic repairs, or are you looking at a house that needs a roof, needs a heating system, needs windows, and needs a kitchen and bathroom? So like there's different levels of fixer-uppers, and you figure out what your comfort level is. The more it needs, the fewer people you're going to compete against, and the easier it's going to be for you to be the only offer. And maybe you can put an offer in that you're negotiating, which would be great. So another thing you can do is, instead of looking at property at the top of your budget, if you're approved for $500,000 and you're looking at $490,000, you're going to have a hard time if you run into a multiple offer situation.
Right. Yeah, because then you will have to bid over asking, and right now, if there is more than like 3 or 4 offers on the table, people are going way over asking. So if you're at the top of your budget already, it doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room to offer a little bit more. Another thing you can do is extend your search area. If you're used to just looking at 2 towns, add a few towns to that. That'll increase the inventory, and it'll increase your chances of finding a home that you're actually interested in, that you want to put in an offer on.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't even looking at the town we moved into. Our home search was 4 or 5 other towns, and you forced me to put this town on our list, and shockingly we found the house we wanted to buy in this town. So
it was a complete fixer-upper, but it was something we could handle, so we decided to buy it, and we're really glad that we did, because when you do buy a fixer-upper or a house that needs a little bit of work, the day you move in, you're already adding equity to it. So it just really makes sense to do that.
And in a market where everybody's worried about price reductions coming or home values potentially going down over time instead of going up, if you're adding equity to that property, you're always going to be above water instead of below water or underwater. And what's the last thing people need to think of?
Patience.
A lot of patience.
A lot of patience right now in this market. I know it can be frustrating to keep putting in really strong offers with really good terms and to keep having the offers be rejected. But we've had buyers who have been looking for a year, 2 years.
3.
So 3 years. One buyer has been looking for 3 years.
And she's under agreement right now, and she's closing this week. So.
And she's super happy, and we are super happy for her. But yeah, it definitely takes a lot of patience and a little bit of thick skin. If you do get rejected, just keep looking. It's kind of like dating.
You're not still dating, are you?
No, but it reminds me of my dating days where, you know, somebody wouldn't call you back and it felt terrible and you had to go on another date. But it's kind of like the same with looking for a house.
Home shopping is dating.
You get rejected. You just keep on going. Look at other homes. There's always another one out there. And I think that's all we had for you today.
All right. I think we covered everything.
I think so. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll talk to you in the next video.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everyone.